Hello and welcome to Canopy, the show where I attempt to make just about everything from the ground up. It is time for me to start building my she shed. In this video I'm going to be working on assembling the base. It's going to be just the carcass and getting it painted so that it is weatherproof. So I have just gotten back from a Home Depot run, and on that run I picked up 3 pieces of 2x6 pressure treated boards. I was going to put a sheet of plywood down, and in the model that is what I had anticipated. Since I needed to bolt this thing to the frame, I went with the pressure treated wood because I want to be able to sink these heads. The whole point of propping this up was so that I could get beyond these bolts here. And so I was going to lay in a sheet of plywood that would be thick enough to just raise above these bolts. But then I was basically defeating the whole purpose of that by bolting that sheet of plywood to the frame, because that sheet of plywood was going to be only a 1/2 inch thick, and the 1/2 inch thick was not enough for me to sink this head and feel good about it being a good grab. These 2-inch pressure treated bits will be enough, and then these are going to become what I am able to screw my wood base to. It took an age for me to find stainless steel bolts that actually matched. It was like pretty crazy. I don't know what's going on with the supply. I mean, I even tried to look in galvanized and looked in plain ones, and I could not find a matching set of a bolt, a nut, and a washer. I ended up thankfully finding some stainless steel ones, which I think is probably the better way to go anyway. And it took an age of me digging through countless nuts to try and find the nuts that are here. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and basically go to town securing these. These are going to get bolted, I think, in 4 places. 3 pieces of wood, 12 bolts. So I'm going to go ahead and bolt, probably not at this center point. I think I'll do 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that should be more than enough to get me there. Or maybe I'll stagger. I don't know. What should I do? Alright. Enough waffle. I'm going to go ahead and get moving. I am still trying to sort out the whole camera angle thing right now because the sun keeps shifting, and now the camera itself right at this moment is actually in the direct sunlight, which is not going to work. So I either need to order an umbrella for the camera because it's going to constantly get hot out here. With the camera being in the sun, it's the only place I could place it where the lighting seemed okay. If I stick it in the shade, then it's facing the light, and then the lighting becomes like in darkness where I'm sitting. So I don't know, it's new for me. All right, I'm used to like filming in highlights over there, so please excuse the lighting if it's terrible. I'm gonna try and get some close-ups of what the heck I'm doing over here. All right, so I'm gonna hit this board with my Fastener bit here that is gonna just half sink, probably just enough to sink this head and a washer, which, eyeballing it, should be just enough to where that head sinks. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Seriously, my crows are like yelling at me right now. I fed them, but apparently they didn't get enough peanuts. Why are you slip sliding? Come on. Alright, so there's that. And then I'm gonna switch this out, and I might have to step this bit up a minute. This is 3/8, and the bolts are 3/8, but I might give me a little bit of extra slack. We'll see how it goes. I got plenty of slack. Yeah, it's all right. Under. Alright, that'll be alright. I'm going to do this for the other ones before I go ahead and secure. This one's secure. I jacked up the holes on the other end probably because I was trying to eyeball and didn't actually measure. I won't do that for the others. right. Cannot lose these. I had exactly the right number. I don't want to go back picking through those bins. So I'm going to begin cutting the plywood that's going to run inside. And I have my cut sheet here, but I'm probably going to reference that model too just to make sure. It's looking like I'm cutting into 3 different pieces that are going to be 64 inches in width because they're going to be spinning it the other way. So I'm going to get on that part. Here is the first of what I am sure will be many, many changes as I go along in the actual construction of the thing. Once I cut up this plywood, I realized the little bit of extra was just enough to give me the wedge inside here, rather than cutting up a third one and having to take notches out. However, what this did was push more of the back end towards that way. It's supposed to be a 12-inch overhang, so 1 foot overhang over the back edge of the gate. However, I now have 18 inches. So there's an extra 6 inches of an overhang that I was not anticipating, and that makes me feel slightly uncomfortable with the way it is right now. So what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to run to Home Depot, and I'm going to add in, thankfully I have holes here and here, just another 2 boards cut in half just to make up for that overhang. So those, I'll have 2 more of these boards kind of sit out here to give me a little bit of extra support. But before I do that, I'm going to give this a coat of green exterior paint so that when I flip this over, it'll already be sealed and I'll be good to go. I should mention that obviously if I'm getting an extra 6 inches overhang back there, that means the dragon's butt is going to be overhanging an extra 6 inches. However, after looking at the model and the way that the displacement of weight is, I think it's going to be more than fine. It actually kicks my center point a little closer to the middle of these wheels. In the model, I had more of the weight kind of shoved towards the front. And I think this is going to even out my weight a little bit. I've clocked my weight prior to the change from 3/4 inch to 1/2 inch plywood. My weight was around 700 pounds, and this is a 1,700 pound trailer. I have decreased at least 100 pounds by switching from 3/4 inch plywood to 1/2 inch plywood. So that's probably roughly about 600 pounds. And then I dumped a sheet of plywood and switched it out for that pressure treated wood. I probably have to guess after picking it up, it's roughly about the same weight of what a sheet of plywood would be. And I've also overshot all of my weight measurements because I'm cutting up these pieces of plywood and I've added in an extra piece just to make sure that my weight is more than what I need it to be. As far as the weight disbursement goes, there are going to be places like inside the foot that if I have to deal with some leveling and whatnot, I can add some weight here and there. Alright, so off to paint. I just dampened my roller a little bit. It helps with the paint application. Yesterday, I totally screwed up and I botched what was happening here in the base. The decision to forego the bottom piece of plywood in exchange for these 2x was a good decision. However, it was a last minute decision that was made on the spot because they actually didn't have my plywood, and also it would allow me to be able to sink the heads of those bolts. However, the entire surface here is meant to be roughly 10 by 6, and rather than purchasing 10-foot long 2x, I ended up buying 8-foot long 2x, then went, oh, I needed to extend some on the bottom for extra support, and went to go back to buy more, and then this was yesterday. Obviously it was a long day, I painted a bunch of stuff, and this morning I went, why the heck did I buy 8-foot long 2x6s? Why didn't I buy 10-foot long 2xs? And I also realized that the 2x6 was way overkill. I only needed 2x4s, especially since I'm putting 5 in now to give me a little bit more of an extra extension. I went back to Home Depot. I'm going to be taking this thing apart, removing the 2x6x8s and putting in 2x4x10s. The 5 of them actually is a lot less weight than it was going to be with the 2x6s. That's my plan. Trying to get the commentary in here before all the noise happens, because it's Monday and the street sweeping will be going by and who knows what else blowers. The underside, the plywood is nice and dry, so I'm going to spend some time ripping up these 2x6s that are now basically a waste. I'm going to set them aside and install the new 2x10s. I'm going to pull out the middle 2 and just leave 3 pieces in. Any weight I can alleviate throughout this thing, the better, because I do have only a 1,750 pound weight limit, maximum weight limit. In between this middle stud and the 2 side ones is 18 inches, which is generally for a wall the right distance. I know for flooring, I think that it's supposed to be a little bit more. But I will be putting a 1/2 inch piece of plywood that's going down, and then on top of that is where all of that resin work is going to be with the round circular discs. So by the time the flooring is said and done, I'm looking at probably close to 3/4 of an inch to an inch of flooring. In such a small space, I think that the 3 beams will be more than enough. Hoping that I am not going to regret saying that. I got these boards temporarily placed, and I'm going to throw in a couple screws just so that I can get them to sit where they need to go while I start cutting up the pieces that are going to be built up around it. I'll be using a biscuit joiner for the side edges and epoxy. I want to get this secured in place while I take my measurements and while I get ready to mark up where the biscuits are going to go. I am not liking that. So these are coming off, and I'm throwing those 2 middle boards back in. And then I gotta figure something else about this edge. Something I don't like. I know that I'm gonna be locking this in, but I feel like I need to build out some framing here because I'm not liking it. Change in plan. I put in the 6x that I had already marked and put those in. I should have enough support now in the center of this. But I still have this overhang issue that I'm not happy with. So instead of using the biscuits that I was originally going to use, I'm going to go back to Home Depot. I feel like this entire build is going to be like this. Me spending trips back and forth to Home Depot multiple times a day. But anyway, I'm going to go back to Home Depot, get some 1x2, and I'm going to build this out as a frame for the bits that are going to come up and over the edge. So by reinforcing with the 1x2, I should stabilize this corner. It'll be like a boxed carcass, much like that. I built that out of really cheap 1/2 inch plywood with 1x2s and with the 1/2 inch plywood. And it's really stable once it's boxed in and converted to a box. As the majority of the weight in the seating area will be on the inside, my only concern was the weight of the glass that will be sitting, on the other edge. I need to make sure that it's boxed out enough for that weight, and the rest of that other area is paw and just storage. So there's not going to be physical body weight off in these wings. It was just the disbursement of that 130 pounds of window glass that will be kind of up over here that I was concerned about. I'm not doing this the way that I probably should be doing it if I had a 3,000 pound trailer. If I had spent, $3,500 and bought a trailer that could house about 3,000 pounds, I wouldn't be having this issue right now. I am trying very desperately to shave off as much weight as I possibly can in this build. But I enjoy a challenge, and I actually see that as part of like the thing that kind of helps me stay within task of building. If I didn't have some sort of set of rules, I'd be going crazy with doing things, and probably the entire thing would be overkill. I think my lightest weight option is going to do this 1x8. It makes a very, very lightweight buffet table. Is, believe it or not, is actually really light, and it's really sturdy too. I did toy with the idea of throwing in 2x4 and building out a frame over there, but the weight that's going to have to draw over there and then have to try and support with brackets, and the only thing doing the actual functioning hold would be whatever the brackets are. I just don't think I want to go that route and add more weight where it's kind of working against itself in an area that is not going to be a body weight load-bearing area. Anyhow, back to Home Depot I go. All right, y'all, I'm going to get this right eventually. So I have decided to release this series, or at least this first part of the series, in vlog format, and it's going to be weekly vlogs. So the very first day, I kind of jumped in and got started a little early on a Sunday for this week. I did that Home Depot run initially to try and start building out the base, and then I did another run yesterday, Monday, well, several runs yesterday to deal with the base, and I left off with reattaching the floor to those 5 pieces that I put underneath. And then I have purchased a bunch of 1x2s that, honestly, the quality of the 1x2s already as furring strips were janky to begin with, but overall quality of lumber since the pandemic has completely decreased. Before I could pick out a few decent ones. Now there's a lot of rough edges, nothing is square. So I figured I'm just gonna run them through the planer anyway. That'll lighten the weight even more, it'll take down some of the dimension, and I will have a nice squaring off. I am hosting a gathering this weekend, and I need to prepare for that halfway through. I only can do so much building on this project before I have to set it aside and start cleanup mode. That being said, I'm only bringing this up because I don't want to mill where I sort of like did a tidying. I know it looks like a pit again. It's just mainly stuff that is out that I got to put away. But I don't want to deal with getting sawdust caked all over everything again. So I'm going to try and mill out on the driveway patio where I'm building. This way I can close the garage, not have the dust coming in. Also, I'm milling 8-foot size pieces, and it's a little difficult to do in this space. Anyhow, today is Tuesday. My plan is to deal with the milling of that and hopefully try and assemble some edges. Since I am hosting this shindig, I was hoping that I would have enough built up around the edges that I could use the base part of it, so it would be just like the base part of this dragon done. Use it as a buffet surface during the gathering. And it's going to actually be a great way to test the base for structural purposes. I'm going to have weight put on it with all of the food and whatnot and people leaning up against it. I'm killing 2 birds with 1 stone. It gives me somewhere to put the food, and then test out the weight of what's happening there. All right, to business. Might as well climb up here, right? Alright, I did not put enough screws in. I only put those temporary screws in because I thought I'd be taking this apart to dump my biscuits in. Since that's not happening, I'm going to go ahead and sink some more screws in all around the edge. The other thing is I need to come up with a cut list for how many pieces I need at 12 inches in height, because this thing is getting built up 12 inches. It'll have a 12-inch high box before the dragon comes on top. So I need to cut up some plywood that is 12 inches in width, and then I can sort out the lengths, but this is a 4-inch piece on each end, so I'll need 4 feet at each end. So I'll need 4 pieces that are 4 feet long by 12 inches in height, and then I'll need some bits to come in here, and then I'll need one long one over there, which I think I still have leftover cut off bits. This one has to be broken up because this is where you'll be walking in, so it'll be like a step up where the dragon door is at the butt. Yeah, I want to just lay down on here and take a nap now that I ate my breakfast / early lunch, and yeah, it's nice out. It's a cool day. This is like a nice bed calling me, and that's actually what it's gonna be at some point. I could just totally just say screw it and take the afternoon off. I did not sleep well. My poor little Peanuts had a little injury that it's not a big cut, but it was scabbed over. The scab is healing, just keeps picking at it. So I had to put a cone on her, and she was so distraught last night that she just kept coming in and out of my bedroom and trying to climb the stairs because my bed is like raised, and because nothing's simple with me, right? My bed is actually a raised bed that has several stairs to get up into it. And so she had the cone on trying to climb in the bed, and it was like just this ongoing thing. So I'm half awake and I could totally take a nap right now, but I probably should use whatever last bit of burst I have in me to cut this wood. All right, onward to work. Onward. Alright, y'all, it is Wednesday. It is another day of me having not so great sleep. Today is my last day of this vlog because I need to start prepping my house tomorrow for this thing this weekend. Last night I really tried to push through to finish getting these side walls up so that all I would have left is getting some sort of top on to use as a buffet, but unfortunately I worked until about 5 o'clock and I was pretty burnt and I didn't finish getting that last piece up and the piece that's going to go here. I decided that today I'd like to try and get the framing in of the inside carcasses where there's going to be storage space, so I'll end up with that center 4x10 in the middle. What that should allow me to do is to easily throw some plywood over the top and just use it as a buffet. I'm hoping it doesn't take all day, because I really think today is one of those days where I'm not a napper, but I probably could use one, because poor Peanut, again, still has the collar on and was very needy last night. I had to help her through the night. That's my story. Story with animals, my babies. They're not animals, they're my babies. This is just what it is, being a parent. Okay, I'm gonna get to work. Alrighty, this is as far as I'm gonna let this build go for this week. I am going to be sweeping it out first before I call it here, and then I'm going to also be throwing some plywood over the top of this just to use as the buffet. I don't want to cut up the plywood because I have to tailor this to be the shape of the dragon. I'm gonna have this wide open space with the plywood, so I'm gonna take some of my scrap pieces I have laying around of the 2x and just cut up some like support systems to kind of stick in the middle, throw the plywood over it, and call it from there. These little brackety corners, they're not 100% secure, but once the plywood goes over the top of them, they'll be locked into place. The exterior paint is really thick and it's meant to be waterproof, but I'm still gonna have all of those screw holes to fill and seam line. So option number one is to fill up all of those seam lines with some joint compound, fill up the holes, and then get 3 or 4 good coats of that green paint on the outside and hope for the best. Option number two would be to glass the outside. Glassing the outside would give me the practice of doing the glassing before I get to the top of the dragon, and it'll waterproof the thing, but then I have a gallon of paint that is basically going to be useless to me. The water-based paint reacts with the epoxy, which only really seems to do well with oil-based things. All of the paints now, it's really hard to get, especially here in California, an oil-based paint. So I'd have to run some tests, and that will take up some time. The benefit to the glassing is it definitely would be stronger, but then I lose the aesthetics of the paint color. So the artist in me is like, well, this entire thing was just an experiment, so screw it, just go with the aesthetic property. And then the craftsman in me is going, you need to figure out another way to get color on, and you should deal with glassing. So this is what I have to think about over the next 4 days about how I'm going to approach next week. I don't have an answer yet. Probably going to wake up the night before the work starts and go, okay, this is what I'm going to do today. But for now, I'm going to clean this up, get the rest of the studio kind of tidied up, and get some temporary top thrown on. Alright y'all, I am gonna call this video here. Please like, share, and subscribe if you have not done so already. Stick around to watch this project all come together. And remember, don't wake the dragon.